Okay, we got a couple days before Batman v Superman comes out. I think I can squeeze in a few more reviews, so right now, let's talk about Superman 2. And just like my review for Superman the movie, this review is going to contain some minor spoilers for Superman 2. So if you don't want it to be spoiled, go watch the movie. If you don't care about spoilers, hey, you can stick around then. So Superman 2 came out in 1980. It's directed by a couple of different people, actually. This movie went through a lot of production problems. Essentially, Richard Donner, who directed the first Superman movie, he was planning on shooting Superman 1 and 2 back to back, so he filmed a lot of scenes for Superman 2 while he was filming Superman 1 in 1977. And then after Superman the movie came out in 78, they replaced Donner with another guy named Richard Lester, who then finished up the movie in 1979, so the movie was shot over a period of 2 years, and Richard Lester went through and he reshot some of the stuff that Donner had already shot because he wanted to go for a different tone, a little bit more campy. And the movie is actually not that bad. It's pretty good. And there was another edition of this movie that came out in 2006, that's Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, which is more or less what Richard Donner's vision was for the movie. I just watched both of them yesterday, so I'm going to be comparing the original cut with the Donner cut, just to see, what I liked and what I didn't like about it. But starting off with the good in this movie is that Christopher Reeve is still amazing as Superman. Lois Lane is given a lot more to do in this movie. Her dynamic with Superman is really interesting because she finds out his powers, which is a pretty cool scene, actually. And the theatrical cut, I don't like it quite as much, but they're sitting around in a honeymoon suite. Lois Lane's hairbrush falls into the fire, so Clark reaches in to grab it, and then his hand comes out, and she's like, "Oh, your hand's not burned. Oh, you must be Superman." So in the Donner cut, they're sitting in the hotel room again, and Lois is sitting down at this desk, Clark is standing up, they're talking. Then Lois pulls a gun on Clark, and she's like, "Hey, if you're Superman, this isn't gonna affect you at all." So she shoots him, and then Clark, of course, has to reveal his identity because he's not dead. Which, when I first saw that, I was like, what would happen if Clark wasn't Superman? Yeah, he'd be pretty dead right about now. Which is hilarious because like a second later in the movie they address that. Clark is saying like, if I wasn't Superman, Clark Kent would be dead right now. And then Lois Lane goes, with a blank. That scene was cool. I liked seeing that detective reporter side of Lois Lane. And now that Lois Lane's in love with Clark, aka Superman now, Superman's having doubts like, oh, should I be Superman? Should I not be Superman? Should I care after the world? Can I care after Lois Lane? And then he goes and he reverses all of his powers. And those scenes where Clark doesn't have his powers, particularly that bar scene, that stuff's pretty cool. It is kind of a bummer seeing the Man of Steel without his powers. You really feel for him when that trucker just like smacks him over the head and he busts down, hits that glass. And this movie also brought back the villains that we saw at the beginning of Superman the movie. You remember Superman the movie starts out and it has Jor-El. He's banishing General Zod and his other cohorts out to the Phantom Zone. Well, in the beginning of this movie, they get released, they go down to Earth, they go to the president's house, they want him to kneel before Zod. And Terrence Stamp was awesome as Zod. He kind of brings this like theatricality to the performance, like a very over-the-top thing. So when they first show up in the middle of Houston, it kind of feels like the first Thor movie when he's walking around Arizona. He's like, "Oh, what's all to this coffee cup?" But then when they're going through and they're actually wrecking and wasting stuff, I'm like, alright, you guys got some powers, that's cool. And these are villains that Superman can actually fight. Because in the first movie you have Lex Luthor, he's a businessman, he's more just got this evil, dastardly plan, but they're not really able to scrap because Superman, Superman, and there's Lex Luthor, who's just a regular human. So this movie allows for some fighting. There's a showdown near the end in Metropolis, and that's got a lot of really cool scenes in it. But that fight in Metropolis and the rest of the movie in the theatrical cut, it's a little too campy. And yeah, the first Superman movie was campy too, but like there's a scene after that fight, they go to the Fortress of Solitude, and Superman, like, he uses the S on his shirt and like throws it. It's like the cellophane wrap thing that kind of engulfs one of Zod's henchmen. Like, where did that power come from? I think that the Donner cut was also paced a little bit better. In the theatrical cut of the movie, the reason that Zod and his henchmen are able to escape the Phantom Zone is because there's this big nuclear warhead that's happening in Paris, so Superman has to go and save the day. And he shoots the nuke up into the sky, and that's what frees them from the Phantom Zone. Which is like a 15-20 minute scene, and it's okay. There's a couple of cool scenes in there. But in the Donner cut, they just use the missile that Lex launched in the sky at the end of the first Superman movie. So when Supe launches that into the sky, that is what frees them from the Phantom Zone. I just feel like that's a much more efficient way to do that. It allows the story to get going a lot quicker. And of course, with a movie like this, where there's two different directors and a bunch of competing ideas, some people aren't going to want to work for the new guy, like Gene Hackman didn't want to work for the new guy. Marlon Brando demanded too much money, I think. So they kind of had to shoot around that. Lex Luthor's in the movie a little bit. He's in it more in the Donner cut. A lot of the scenes with Gene Hackman in this movie were filmed with Richard Donner. And when they go to the Fortress of Solitude, Superman's talking with the giant Jor-El head, which is Marlon Brando's head like he was in the first movie. In this one, they had to substitute him with Superman's mom, which I didn't really think made a lot of sense. And there's a scene where Lex Luthor and Miss Tessmacher, they go up to the Fortress of Solitude, they turn on the little projection thing, and there's this guy talking about like trees. I was just like, why is that guy here? And also, one of the biggest plot holes in the movie is that after Superman finds out about General Zod, he goes back to the Fortress of Solitude to try to reverse the thing and get his powers back. And the theatrical cut, he's walking around, he's screaming, he's like, "Father, help me out." And then he finds that green crystal on the ground that came in his spaceship, and then the next scene, he's Superman again. And the Donner cut, he's talking with the Jor-El head again, and Jor-El has to transfer his remaining power left, and it goes back into Superman, and that's how he gets his powers back. But because of that, now he's not able to talk to Jor-El anymore, so this is the last time he's ever going to see Jor-El. It's an emotional scene, it's a cool scene, and unfortunately they had to cut it in the theatrical release, so I thought that was a bummer. I get that Marlon Brando demanded too much money to be in this movie, and that's why they had to do that, but it's just a bummer when actors and contracts and all that kind of stuff harm the movie as a whole. But on the whole, I really do like both cuts of Superman 2. I'm slightly partial to the Richard Donner cut, and I also do enjoy Superman 1 more than I enjoy Superman 2. However, it's amazing that this movie's actually good because of all the production difficulties that went on behind the scenes. I'd say check it out if you haven't seen it before. And I guess now I should probably talk about Batman Returns, so look forward to that review coming hopefully tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, you can click subscribe, check out some of my other stuff, and I'll catch you guys next time.